Hello, welcome back to Are You Seeing This? I am Mo,
And I'm Sarah.
and this is episode 32.
Welcome back. We're in our 30s, our early 30s now, so that's fun. Are you
Yeah,
doing a craft today,
we're
or are
what
you?
oh goodness, I completely forgot. You know what? The craft is the friends we make along
Oh,
the
we're
way.
crafting a friendship.
Oh,
I love
yeah.
that.
I mean, yeah. We already have a pretty solid friendship crafted. Maybe we're crafting a friendship with our
Maybe.
viewers.
Well,
Viewers,
no, no,
listeners.
no. We can't be parasocial. We can't be like the
No,
streamers.
that's so true. They're not our friends. They are strangers, and we are not affectionate
We are
towards them.
honing our craft of speaking into microphones. That's what
Yes,
we're
the
doing today.
friendship that is this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're crafting.
Yes. I will be coloring while we're crafting that as well.
Yes,
I'm double
I love
crafting.
that. I have so many coloring books. I should really get into
I asked
that.
my mom for them for Christmas because I don't know. I was like, I should work on doing shadows and highlights. Anyway,
But anyway,
moving into our
I couldn't find a way to loop it back in. So let's just get started.
yes. Um, should I start or do you want to start?
You can go ahead and start.
Okay. I'm gonna start with like I'm trying. Okay, I try to be optimistic in my life. I'm trying not to complain
Mm-hmm.
as much about things anymore. But I did want to
Yeah.
talk about something I've been seeing a lot of people complain about online, just for a brief minute, which
Yeah, lay
is
it on me. What's
the
up?
price of getting your hair cut. And we talked about this
Ooh.
privately,
Mm,
but there's a big thing happening
yeah.
right now where hairstylists, I don't want to say all hairstylists because I'm sure there's some where like their chairs are full right now, but they're saying that like the salon is empty around their busiest time of year, which is, the holidays. And at least for
Yeah.
me, because this has happened to me with a few luxury services, I know like I do my nails sometimes on here, and that was something that I learned over the past few months. And I did that because it's so expensive to get your nails done. Because my nails grow so fast, I have to go like every 2 weeks. And I really, in this economy can't afford it. So I just learned how to do gel X at home. So for the price of like going to get my nails done once, I got all the supplies. And then I started just like trimming my hair at home. And I stopped getting my hair dyed, which I really don't need to dye my hair, but you know how I am. When I get stressed, I'm like, it's time to dye
I
my
know.
hair. Um,
Yes, I'm familiar with the pattern.
yes.
I remember there was one time I was looking at your astrology chart and I was like, this is not the time to dye your hair. And you immediately said, I was thinking about it. And I'm like, I know you were. Don't right now. Just wait a week.
Yeah, because there's dyeing hair and tattoos was the other one, and that was another luxury service that I got priced out of when I
Yeah.
moved. It's just so I guess like the big thing that spurred this on is going back to nails. I had to put a deposit down on a nail appointment, and I did it, but then I canceled it because I was like, I know that I'm gonna end up paying like $130, probably more, for this nail set.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just canceled it. And even though I lost my $25 deposit, even with that, I was like, I just can't this month put that money down. That's crazy. And so,
Yeah.
just looking at like luxury services, the way that they've, because like you're gambling, you're rolling the dice on whether or
Oh,
not you're
yeah.
going to be happy with the services that you receive. I have been charged crazy prices for
Mm-hmm.
nails that look awful. And then
Yeah.
I just have to pay because I'm like, you did spend all this time on it, but like, I don't think it's worth this much. But I also didn't go to school. And that's like the fine line. Because haircuts, I don't know that I've ever been fully happy with a haircut that I've gotten. And it's because of my hair texture, because I have such curly hair that it's very rare that I walk into a salon, I walk out, and I'm like, no, this is exactly what I wanted. And when you look into there's this interesting niche that's happened where now it costs you like they call it a curly haircut, and it costs like $200 minimum
Oh my
to go and do it,
God.
and you have to wash and style your hair to go to the appointment because they have to do a dry cut. And I
Mm,
get that's like a specialized thing, but it's also like, okay, well, then I'm not going to pay to go do it.
yeah,
So, like,
that's
I
crazy.
guess that's kind of like what my thoughts are when I see like people talking about prices. Because I understand some things, like, I understand it to an extent. But what's starting to get to me is like, I feel like there's a lot of people who aren't like especially experienced who are charging premium prices.
Hmm.
And I understand, like,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to be sensitive because I understand that hairstylists,
Hmm.
like, the way they do their taxes, they're technically business owners. So they pay like a
Hmm.
lot in taxes. And then they also get charged, like, almost a separate rent for their chair in a salon, like $500 a month, I think is the like medium for each month for their chair. So they're paying a lot of overhead. And I specifically, I have a lot of hair and my hair is like really long at this point. So I understand like it takes a lot of time and product to do my hair. So that's why for the most part I try not to be like, like if I were to go get my hair dyed at this moment in time, if like I don't know, blonde is a lot, but like red, it would take a whole day. It would take like 6 hours. So I understand why you need to charge me like a day rate, but then I think we start getting into crazy town of like root touch ups and
Yeah.
things remain that price. And I know my roots don't take that long.
Yeah, I definitely feel that is happening a lot because listen, we're all aware of the fact that it is expensive to exist right now.
Yeah.
And the thing that occurs to me as you're talking is like this is considered a luxury, but however, women are very much judged by their hair and
Yes.
their looks, and especially by the level of femininity they perform. And so to me, it's like it feels not like a luxury. I mean, it is and it isn't because I've definitely heard people talk about how like you can get hired or not hired for a job based on how well you might perform femininity for the job interview, or you might get a promotion or not. There was one time I interviewed for a job, and this was for like one of those online teaching English online to kids in China and Japan jobs.
Right.
But the interviewer literally said, like, you might want to put on some makeup or something for the video calls. And I was like, oh, okay. And, for those who can't see me, I'm a butch lesbian. So I haven't worn makeup since I was like 17. Um, and like my experience with getting my hair cut is different in that like I used to go to a salon and I never really got the masculine haircut I wanted. And then finally, after talking to you back and forth a lot, I finally went to a barber. And then like I do get like the haircut I want now, but I definitely had that experience that you're talking about where like, you go to a salon, I paid a lot less. I only paid because I'm white as the pale bud of the moon and I've got this fine thin hair, and so my haircuts were when I first went it was like $32, and then by the time I left it was up to $48. But I remember being annoyed because it's like you're just trimming off a couple inches, and like why are we doing all of this? And also I was never really satisfied,
Right.
even though I showed him the same picture every single time I went. And now I go to a barber and it's like $28.
Right. That's the other thing. There is such a steep change from if you're going, and I understand this to an extent, but like I used to get haircuts for $35 and
Mhm.
now I feel like at minimum I'm paying like $75 to get my hair trimmed. Nothing
Yeah,
special.
that's
That's
insane.
insane. And that's like and that was why I tried going to someone who had less experience and they still charged me, and you have to like tip, or like it's expected you tip. It's a whole thing. And like it was frustrating because it took this person a lot of time, but I knew it took them time, and they were
Mhm.
upfront with me that they didn't have a lot of experience with my hair texture. So at the end of it, I was a little bit like, so we just did all this and and
Yeah.
now I got to pay you premium prices anyway. But that is like something that really frustrates me, is that like such a huge jump. And I get that, like, I think barbers charge less because when you have shorter hair you tend to like go back more regularly.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I get that, but I
Like I should be going technically every month
right.
if I want it to stay exactly as I want, but I usually go every 3 months just to save a little bit.
I mean, there's guys with
And then
fades
it
who go
does
like
end up
once a
looking
week.
like, yeah, see, that's why I won't get a fade. That requires a lot of upkeep.
I had
I'd have to learn how to do it myself, which I have thought
well,
about,
my
but
friends in college who had undercuts, they just bought their own clippers and they would do the upkeep at home. But they had a
hmm.
specific look to them,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a fade; it was straight undercut.
Yeah. And also they were in college and
Right.
like it's a little different when you're in the workforce and have to, go to the office and look
That
good
is
and stuff
that is
like
what's
that.
really frustrating though is I am literally reverting to strategies I put in place in college because
Yeah.
things are getting so expensive. I feel a little like, why am I cutting my own hair? I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. And like you said, like I always tip. I always tip wherever I'm going for whatever service, but I am getting to the point where I'm like, why can't we just, if you're owning the business, why can't you just include the tip in the services you're charging?
Mm-hmm.
I understand it, but also I also am not making great money. So what are we doing here? Like,
That's like a big thing.
share our podcast across all social media platforms. Help us become luxury people.
Yes, please. That was like a big thing for me of like I haven't gotten a tattoo in 2 years now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And part of it is, well, I haven't really like, well, I've gone through like I'm now in my second employer in 2 years. Um, and I had like a significant like pay jump in between those jobs. So that's one of the reasons, but also like, you probably are unaware of the whole like tangle of the booking process with a fucking tattoo artist. So a lot of times
I've heard you talk about it.
it's
Yeah.
and this is like why I get irritated because I'm starting to find that the hair and nail industry is beginning to take on some of those practices and I hate it because it's like they open their books for a brief window, you schedule something like months away and then you put down a deposit of like $250 seems to be or 150 seems to be like what everybody agrees on. And so then you've put down your deposit and in like 3 months you'll go and get your tattoo. And I've found that I've done a few different people and there's very few of them like they don't really show you the design until you get there. So you're really like you send them
Yeah.
references and you're really just like blind faithing it. And I've had some tattoo artists who are like I've forever mourned the one I left behind in New York. He was so good. All the work he
Mhm.
did and like he just had like the best. I think it was because he was a dad. He had like the best environment where he had like the right snacks. He had Capri Suns and like he worked with me really well. And the way that he did it is like he liked to do standing appointments with people and they'd come in and only do like 2 to 4 hours at a time. He said he found that was like the best, like the sweet spot for people. So I've kind of decided at this point in my life, I don't know that I don't really like doing little flash pieces anymore because like those were fun. Again, when you're like in college or like in your early 20s, but I really want to start working on bigger pieces. So I have to find somebody who does what I like and then get in with their books and do that whole booking process and then pass the like, I don't know. I don't know if it's a test. There's kind of like a vibe check you have to do with them. So you go through the whole process and then you're like,
Mm.
cool. A lot of times the criteria is you just let them do whatever the fuck so they can be creative. And once they do that, it's like, great, do you want a standing appointment? And so that's kind of like what I want because I want to do more like sleeves and more thought out pieces. And I've considered doing laser for some of the shitty smaller stuff I got in college for cover ups. But like because of that, I have to be a lot more intentional. And so it's just hard because those things are really expensive. So I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't want to go get a sleeve unless I have like the 2K in the bank already because it'll probably take like a year of sessions. And I want to make sure I have the money ready to go before I do that because I just don't want to deal with the bullshit.
Yeah, and I think that circles back to the topic of like the hairdressers and the
Mm-hmm.
nail salons, is that like you're really dependent, you're paying all this money, but you're really dependent on their experience, their knowledge, and their decisions on how creative they get with your body.
Right.
And that doesn't feel fair to then be charged all this money for something that you don't know how well it's going to turn out, and you don't know how well they're going to align with what your vision is and what you asked for.
Right. It's just like, I don't know. It's it's tough all around. Like I correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember you ran into issues where like when you go to salons and you show them short hair, they're like when they assume like, "Oh, you look like a woman to me. I'm going to do a feminine haircut." And it's hard to push them
I got a lot of
sometimes.
PTA mom haircuts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's where like, I don't know, you really it's so hard to find like good people. And once you find them, you really have
Yeah.
to like hang on to them.
That is the key. Yeah. I thankfully have a good barber now who she's a very sweet older woman. She's a grandmother. So
Aww.
I think that's the other key, is like you kind of have to like, this is what I did when I was looking for therapists, is like I'm looking for someone who's like not in their 20s.
Ah.
And I'm sorry to people in your 20s who are looking for experience, but like you got to be at least 30, because I'm not here to like, I need, if I'm going to pay this money, I want the experience and the knowledge that comes with that.
We all relate to that of like these luxury services. And I do think it's interesting that there's been a discussion about like, is a haircut a luxury service? Do we consider that a
Yeah.
luxury service?
Mm-hmm. And I would argue it is not a luxury service when it is expected to, in order to like get through the gate
Mm-hmm.
into so many other parts of life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Especially as someone who like I have a hair texture where even today like my hair is I don't have my camera on, but it's like so frizzed out because I have to restock on certain products and I haven't done that yet. So it's like I have all these built-in things I have to do where I have to do like, leave-in conditioner, curl cream, like a a mousse and like a gel to finish, and then an oil to break the cast so it doesn't look crunchy. There's like all these steps I have to
Hmm.
do. And God, when I used to pre-work from home, when I had to like go into an office, I know there were days my hair was looking rough, so that was one of the reasons I got good at braiding my hair. But sometimes like it stopped, I think, within the last few years, but I used to get a lot of comments if my hair was really frizzed out.
Yeah, I feel that. That sounds rough.
But like, it's the same deal with that like certain expected, like I guess what people, there's a very narrow definition of what it is to be professional. Now I just have to make it look okay on camera. But yeah, that's I guess what I'm starting with.
Okay, yeah, it's a good topic.
Mm.
Okay, I wanted to talk about Slenderman. So, what do
Okay.
you know about Slenderman?
I remember it was a like point and click game. I think that's how it started, where there's essentially like this dude in the woods, and you have to go around and collect papers. I think I played it like twice when I was younger. Weirdly, I know about the really shitty movie that was made about it with, I think Joey King was in it. Um,
Right. So,
and I know that there was, you know what, I'm not going to claim I know. I thought that it was either based on a story of friends and someone passing in the woods, or it inspired something. I don't remember which one.
there was a true crime thing but we're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
So, Slender Man originates from the Something Awful forums. And so, originally, people just kind of photoshopped this weird guy, what we now know as Slender Man, into all these, spooky, creepy looking photos. And out of that was born the YouTube series Marble Hornets. Marble Hornets is basically a found footage series. It starts with
Mm-hmm.
our main character, Jay. He had this friend, Alex, who was making a series called Marble Hornets, and Jay has the tapes from the student film Alex was making, but Alex disappeared.
Okay.
So
Oh.
Jay is trying to find Alex, and he's going through the old footage trying to figure it out. And as he's going through the old footage, and Jay was also in this student film along with a few of their other friends. And so Jay's looking through the old footage of Alex's film, and some things are kind of weird. The footage is damaged in weird ways where it shouldn't be, and there's this weird looking guy who pops up. And he'll say, I don't remember this happening, but I was there. And so basically, a lot of what we know about Slenderman really comes from this Marble Hornets YouTube series.
Okay.
So Marble Hornets, a lot of the lore we have around Slenderman comes from Marble Hornets. And these three guys just having a video camera and making it up as they go along. And so the video game, a lot of what's in the video game comes from the YouTube series. So like those crude drawings are from the Marble Hornets YouTube series. The camera glitching comes from the YouTube series. A lot of stuff. And
Were
a
they
lot of
compensated?
So they were involved with it. Yes, I believe they were compensated in some way, and they like advised a little bit, but the video game is pretty different from, not pretty different. I mean, it follows the basic premise and the basic lore that the YouTube series established. And it's like a pretty standard horror story plot line, but told in a new, unconventional way. I feel like that's why Marble Hornets really like established Slenderman, and that's why we had Slenderman as such an established part of our like internet ecosystem of urban legends.
I didn't know there was so much backstory.
Yeah, it's something that kind of like I wish got more recognition, because whenever people talk about Slenderman, they bring up like you said, like the video game, which I feel like is what most people know. But it was really like these three college students originally, or like maybe they had just graduated, just like making something out of just like basically nothing, just like their own creativity and a video camera someone got at a flea market, I think, or a yard sale. Like the whole reason it was like they were using tapes was because like I think Troy or someone got like the video camera for relatively cheap somewhere. But yeah. Right. So I think it's a really interesting story about like how just like being innovative and just having this like story and keeping it, simple and to the point can really like make so much out of so little.
Right. That's like have you seen Talk to Me?
No, what's that?
It's a horror movie that came out like last year.
Oh, wait, yes.
Let me look this up. I don't want to get the name wrong. I think I know.
It was like they're doing a seance or something.
Because that one was made by YouTubers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it was like Australian. It was kind of like a seance. Honestly, the mechanism that they came up with, I really enjoyed that. Okay, I got the name, but I want to make sure. They're Australian twins, Danny and Michael Philippou. I think it was called Raka Raka was their channel. So it's like an A24 movie. A lot of people have talked about it, but it was a very simple, there was nuance to it, but it's like, it all starts with one thing and it ends with one thing, right? Like that's the thing throughout. Mm-hmm. And it was just like really well executed, and knowing that it was made by, I feel like a lot of creatives online kind of get like dismissed. Like we all, I guess in the internet, get really caught up on the video game, and we forget that like, this is a really unique concept that was pulled off online. Yeah. So I really recommend Talk to Me. I don't know if the creators said this, but I heard that like the hand in the film is symbolic of, and the way that the plot moves, it can also be read as like how drugs and peer pressure like dictates our actions in some ways. I don't know how true that is. That was something that I heard, but I could see that in some of the film. But I thought that it was a very unique take on seances, communing with the dead, like, because I think that's a common thread of like when you open the door, something inevitably, like you reach out, but it goes both
Oh yeah,
ways.
you open a door, that's an
So
open gateway for
yeah,
anything.
right. So I'm like being really vague about it because I honestly I don't watch it. I average like maybe 3 movies a year,
I feel that so bad, yeah.
and
It's just hard to find time.
and that it's hard to find time, but also like I don't know. I don't know if my attention span is suffering, but it's not because I'm trying to listen to more audiobooks and do like my Spanish lessons. So I'm trying to work on other things. But it was one of my 3 movies of the year last year. And I thought it was very well worth my time, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very unique take, similar to how, like, because I remember Slenderman was around that time. It was like the tail end of the found footage films.
Yeah. It's interesting how like we got access to this technology of like having our phones and having YouTube, which is like been so empowering for so many people. And obviously now you have TikTok and Instagram, but like I remember when YouTube originally was like the place where you could have nothing, but you could still have a successful YouTube channel.
Yeah. And it's like so fun to see. Because I feel like, you know, it just reminds me of like Paloma Diamond on
I
TikTok
love,
that
yes.
you always send me. And, you know, I sometimes see people like that where they institute these really unique techniques that you like oftentimes see in TV and film, and they use it or they take it and take it a step further. And I just find it interesting because I think, is it Jane Wickline who just got cast on Saturday Night Live and her whole thing was comedy on TikTok?
Oh, I didn't see that. That's so interesting.
Oh, yeah, that was who I sent you. She did that song recently, the Sabrina Carpenter song, where everyone wants to speculate on her sexuality. So she started on TikTok. She was so funny. And she was, I think she's the first, she's definitely the first TikTok hire. She's definitely not the first online, because I remember Lonely Island started on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, them too. We've had so much.
So but it's like, there's always a period of time and a moment where they don't want to acknowledge online creators.
Yes. Yeah. There is that.
But now, like, celebrity is becoming very finite. I think that traditional media is incredibly resistant to that.
Yeah, the death of the superstar and the birth of, I guess, the internet star.
Yeah, there's a internet killed the radio star.
Video killed the radio star.
Video killed the radio star.
Internet killed the video
television.
star. Yeah.
That was what I used to watch this vlog guy who his whole thing was he would say internet killed television, which I have a lot of thoughts on that too, but we can get into that another time.
So, yeah, that was my first idea, the Slender Man Marble Hornets history. What do you have next?
So I read a couple times ago. I don't know. When we recorded and I talked about how mad I was about Reddit comments. Yeah. Like people commenting on Reddit, which is very ironic that I got mad about people being mad. So I was like, because like I 3D model all day. So I have to have like noise running. Where a lot of times it's music and a lot of times I'll like go back and just listen to these Reddit stories. And there was this one was one that where the comments were mad at the people for their opinions about the story. But I did think it was genuinely an interesting thing. Like, I think this is an extreme version of it, but it does like similar to last time where I talked about like people reacting to cheaters. And I was like, what would you do if I cheated? I have thoughts on this. Yeah. So like, I'll read through the story. It's people tend to like proliferate on Reddit. But so this was on Am I the Asshole? And this girl said, would I be the asshole for suing my friend after she wrote a book about me? So she says, I, 29, female, have a friend called Maya, in quotes, so fake name. Maya and I have been friends for 9 years after meeting at university. Maybe they're British.
Yeah, that sounds...
I don't know why that does actually change my perspective on this story. I'm like, oh my god, they're British.
What if they're in the royal family? That would really make it different.
So she said, I, 29 female, have a friend called Maya. Maya and I have been friends for 9 years after meeting at university. Maya went through a lot of mental health issues in her early to mid-20s, which impacted her career prospects. But a couple of years ago, she found an outlet in writing. And now she writes and publishes her stories online. They are of the, quote, spicy romance variety. I've never read any of them because they're just not my thing. but I know she has a lot of regular readers. Recently, Maya shared that she had been contacted by a small publishing company which publishes ebooks who were interested in publishing one of the stories she had been sharing online. I was ecstatic for her, as it is a move towards making writing a profession, which is what she really wants. About 3 weeks ago, a mutual friend of ours, Amy, contacted me and asked if I had read any of Maya's current story, as she had looked it up online, and she thought it had some eerie similarities to my life. I looked it up and read a big chunk of it, and it was more than just similarities. It was basically a melodramatic reimagining of my life, specifically about my relationship with my fiancé and my complicated relationship with my father.
Ooh.
I don't know how relevant this is, but she also altered their characters in certain situations to make the, quote, plot pretty toxic. I was devastated and disgusted, to say the least. I met up with Maya and asked how she could do this to me. Her explanation was that she was so inspired by my life and the things I'd told her that the ideas just came to her. I kept saying they weren't her ideas, they were sensationalized details of my real life. She didn't have a single original thought in the whole story. Maya apologized profusely for hurting me and that she was embarrassed by how much she had taken from life, but she really loved writing the book. I told her I wasn't comfortable having my private life aired like that. Maya said nothing in the book was identifiable as me, so it wasn't like she'd done anything illegal. And I said, well, we'll see about that. I've contacted lawyers, and they've said suing her would be largely pointless in terms of stopping the book being published. But starting legal proceedings might scare a small publishing company enough to drop her as an author. I am seriously considering doing this. Worst case, I can't do anything to stop the book going ahead, but I've caused her an iota of the stress and hurt she's caused me. Best case, this creepy project never sees the light of day. A couple of my friends are saying I shouldn't sue her because at the end of the day, this is her work and an opportunity for her to make a career for herself and take care of her child after all she's been through. I know this could ruin things for her and I might be acting out of anger, but I really think it's justified after she betrayed my trust like this. Would I be the asshole to go ahead with suing? And then we have an edit here. For everyone talking about the Streisand effect, I am not in the US. Court legal records here are not something you can Google or access easily. That being said, I realized Maya could publicize a lawsuit herself to get publicity, and that ultimately I'm more concerned about anonymity and it's not worth the risk. I will not be proceeding with the lawsuit. Some people suggested reaching out to the publisher privately, and I'm going to look into that. But either way, I won't drag it out into a court process. So that's a
lot.
The main story. It's a lot. So I remember we talked a little while ago about a writer who stole another person's I don't know if it was their work or their life story. It was her, and wrote about it.
I was about to say it's the famous story of famous in the publishing circles of Twitter but yeah, so one woman, they were kind of friends. They were in a writing group together or writing workshop or something like that. And one woman donated her kidney, and I guess this other woman didn't like how much she talked about it and wrote she didn't like the okay.
I'm sorry. I understand. I understand what you're saying. It's just so funny to be like, oh my God, this woman won't shut the fuck up about how she donated her kidney.
Here's the thing. I've spoken to other writers about this, and I've heard other writers be like, if I donated a kidney, I would never shut up about that. And I'm like, yeah, me neither. I'd be like, do you know what I did? What did you do this weekend? Oh, that's so nice. I donated a kidney. Look at me. I feel like if you give up one of your body parts that you cannot grow back, you have every right to be like, please look at me. Please talk about this. I did a big thing. It's not like donating your blood when you can just you donate blood and you sit there for 15 minutes.
You grow blood.
You know what I mean.
You do harvest blood though. Now that you've said that, I've realized that was actually the correct.
But anyways, so yeah, she donated a kidney, and then this other writer really didn't like her, from what she she and a bunch of other writers would talk about Kidney Lady. I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. Um, but she and the other writers didn't like Kidney Lady. Apparently, she just was like, she seems to be the type of person who, like, is a nice person, good person, but, like, something about the way she talks or interacts with people rubs some people the wrong way. And usually when you, at least for me, when, like, you meet someone like that who, like, you can objectively say, this person's good, but, like, something about them just annoys me. Like, you just avoid them. But
I
what these
see.
writers did is they, like, had a whole group chat going where they were like, I hate her so much. And then one of them
Oh.
wrote a whole story about this obnoxious, awful woman who donated a kidney and wouldn't shut up about it. And there was also, like, an accusation of racism somewhere in there, but, like, it was kind of weak.
There always
It was, I
is.
can't, like, it wasn't that the woman had actually done or said anything racist. There was something about, I can't
She just had
remember.
the aura of someone
There
who
was, I
would.
can't remember. Like, I don't remember there being any concrete things, but, like, when she wrote, listen, I
Okay.
take all of I'm saying with a grain of salt because I do not remember correctly. This happened like a few years ago, but the main gist is that
No, it's okay.
kidney lady donated a kidney. Someone she thought was a friend wrote a story basically making fun of her. Kidney lady found out about it and sued her. Yeah, that's the main story.
Damn. So there is like a little bit more. It doesn't like get resolved, but there are some comments that she made that I was a little bit like, this is fascinating. But overall, okay. I would be, so here's, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would be pissed if this happened to me. And I do think there's something really weird about writing, like, I know people have different definitions of what they consider like quote unquote spicy.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be if one of my friends wrote a story about me in my life and like had sex scenes in it, I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, that'd be weird.
This is like the part, it's weird. And I would kind of be like, what's
I
going
didn't
on
even think about
here?
that part. Yeah, that's weird to be like, let me imagine how
It's
my
weird.
friend is
I
having
think part
sex.
of it is like, yeah, where I guess it's like kind of weird because as I'm talking, I'm now thinking about how like I guess this is just how writers get inspiration where they're thinking about, oh, this is like, I don't know, I have a pretty like unique job
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure there aren't many people who have that job. So I could see someone meeting me like that's really unique, and I can imagine how like you'd end up in these circles or meeting these kind of people or something. Like something kind of unrealistic but a little bit believable because of the nature of the job and writing that in. So I understand like ultimately that's how you learn about things is meeting people who have unique
Mm-hmm.
experiences. But publicizing your fucked up relationship with your
Yeah.
dad,
Yeah.
it's also like, so, okay, when I heard that as well, I was like, why would you need to do that? Why would that even come up?
So,
Lo and behold, in the comments. So you go on and then I'll tell you. Okay, so I want you to give your thoughts on that because they were talking about like publicizing someone's fucked up relationship with their
yeah,
father.
that's not good. The only thing I can think of is like I guess it depends on like what type of spicy story she's publishing because I know there are some authors who like, and this is something I've kind of looked into, is like some people, well, you used to be able to make a bank publishing spicy stories that are like, are we allowed to say erotica? I hate using the word spicy. Like erotic stories that
Yeah.
are like, so yeah, so the thing with the thing with erotica, whether it's like, there's on Kindle, you can self-publish, and a lot of people have made pretty substantial side gigs, if not full-time careers, publishing erotic shorts, which are like anywhere from 5,000 words to like
Right.
10,000 or even like 15. Well, once you get to the 15,000 or 20,000, they start calling them novelettes or novellas. But the thing is, like, in order to
Okay.
really like make a good income off that, you have to publish once a week. So if like some people will do twice a month, but that's not going to get you as much money as like the advice I have seen is like if you actually want to make good money, you have to publish once a week, which you can get pretty exhausted of ideas
Okay.
pretty quickly. So I don't know, maybe she heard her friend
Okay.
talk about her love life, her hookups, her trauma, because that's the other thing is like some erotic stories are just straight up erotica where it's just, bing bang boom. but some of them also have like a little love story aspect to them in order to get longer word
Mm-hmm.
counts in order to make the story longer. So she might have included the dad stuff as like this main character needs a backstory and some sort of emotional arc in order to like give us more space between the banging scenes. Obviously not
Right.
justifying it. I'm just that's what occurred to me is like why she might have done it.
No. And that's
But
okay. Because this is like, okay, here's my I see this the same way I see like reality TV, where I'm like, to me, this is like a character
mhm.
of like, if that makes sense. Like I understand like Reddit, sometimes it's a real person, sometimes it's a fake story.
Mhm.
I'm gonna treat it as if it's a reality show where I'm like, this is like, kind of not real. You're an anonymous person posting online.
Mhm.
At least that's how like I view it. So for me, I was like, that's really weird. Why would you write that? And she specifically was like, and she wrote some weird shit about my fiance. Look in the comments. And she talks about how there's an age gap between her and her
That's a
fiance.
popular.
And that in the book, she writes, yes, she writes from her fiance's perspective and turns him more into like toxic kind of predator
Which is also
vibes.
popular right now in the erotic story sphere.
Right. So, one, that does
Yeah.
suck because I'm sure now, like, their mutual friends who identify her are like, damn, your boyfriend kind of seems like a predator. Is like, how much of this is
Mhm.
true? But I also kind of love the thought that this person just is not having a very unique experience in life
Oh, so you're saying maybe it's
and
not.
read the story and was like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, this is exactly about me.
Okay.
I will say she noted that one of their personal friends reached out and was like, this you, girl. So obviously, like, it was, and she mentioned in the comments that they used like a variation of her
Mhm.
name. So obviously, like, the person writing it didn't care too much about like
Yeah.
anonymity.
Sounds like.
But I just think it would be really funny if she was like, she stole my life, and it's like, your life's kind of like marketable to the
Yeah,
masses.
I mean, I think
Like
it's mean
basic.
either way in terms of like it's also
Right.
okay. This is obviously besides the moral point, but like this is just the type of person I am that I'm like that's just lazy because like there are so many resources online
Yes.
like helping you figure out how to come up with like plot lines and series ideas and like also like the thing with erotic stories is like readers are not looking for unique storylines. Like one of the basic advices is like you can do a whole series that's a very similar premise in each book and it will sell because a lot of readers are looking for the same premise over and over again because like that's what they're coming to erotic stories for. They are looking for this very specific whatever their kink is, whatever their thing is, they just want it over and over again with just slight differences to like make it a new experience for each book you put out. So for me it's like if she did
Okay.
steal this her friend's story it's like girl there are so many books that list tropes you can use, there are so many ways you can generate
Mm-hmm.
ideas. This was just a lazy thing you did and for what now you've lost a friend, like come on.
Right. And that's like ultimately the thing about it that like, I mean, I think the legal action became a really interesting point of contention in that of like, I don't think that that would stand up in a court of
No,
law, unfortunately.
she could easily
But
claim
it's
yeah
also
like
kind
you
of
just
like,
did like no you happen to have a boyfriend who's older and she wrote a character who's older like that's not a unique experience.
yeah, exactly. But she took her out to lunch and she admitted, yeah, I was very inspired by your
Yeah,
life.
which is weird for an
And
erotic.
that's just really weird. It is, and I really agree with the
Yeah, she's
lazy
just lazy.
point because it's like, so I tell you, and you just wrote down my life verbatim,
Mm.
and it really is like those situations. For me, the big question is like, did you not think this was going to get back to her? Like, or did you think that she would be fine with it? Like, how did we get to this point? And this is like, I can't tell if it's like you knew she'd be upset so you didn't say anything and now you're pretending like you thought it would be fine, or like, because that's, to me, I don't know, this concept is so foreign to me of like, like I genuinely, I'm struggling to find the words. Like, I cannot picturing like doing this to one of my friends.
Yeah.
Of like publishing their life story with sensitive stuff. So it's very odd to me, one, that she did it, and then two, that now she's like, yeah, I was just like really inspired by your life, so it was like a really great vehicle for me to write smut. Huh?
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like what my next idea is. If you're okay with me segueing.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Because what I was thinking about with the whole Marble Hornets thing was how there used to be this really like vibrant culture online of original stories. You know, like I was thinking originally about like how there used to be a lot of horror original fiction with creepypastas, the subreddit No Sleep, you know.
Oh yeah.
And there's just been so many. Like I could start listing them and we would be here for 15 minutes. But like also websites like Wattpad, there used to be so many that were so popular for like my generation. I remember particularly in like middle school and high school, like a lot of us were on like several different websites where we were all posting original fiction. But now it's just Wattpad, and Wattpad, I mean, there's others, but they don't have the popularity Wattpad has, or the popularity they had back in the day. And Wattpad is just mainly fan fiction now. I'm sure there still is some original stories, but it's a lot of fan fiction. And it's interesting, like the original fiction people are willing to post, well, not original, but the stories they have written on the internet, it's all fan fiction. Not that there's anything wrong with fan fiction. Please don't cancel me for not saying something super positive about fan fiction, because I know some of you fan fiction people will do that. But like, to me,
we know you freaks.
It's
just being so mean.
I mean, I have heard some stories, so I feel like I have a right to be mean, but to me, it's just, it feels like we've kind of lost something, because now when we're talking about these Reddit, you know, am I the asshole, relationship advice, etc., you know, sometimes it feels like a lot of these are clearly made up. And it's like, okay, so the original stories are being passed off as if they're real life stories. We have this story you just told of like someone using someone's real life for her erotic fiction when she could have just did a little brainstorming session. And then all of the original fiction sites are fan fiction. And I feel like something's really been lost in that, you know, just this, we really want familiarity surrounding us. We really want, like, we want our Reddit stories to remind us of trauma we've experienced so we can project onto it and feel like we're getting some sort of justice. Yes. We want all of our original fiction to be like the same trope over and over again, you know, whether it's age gap or what else is popular right now? Stalkers are popular right now. Weird. You know, if that's your thing, that's totally valid. I do not mean to judge.
Can I make a bold statement right now?
You can make a bold statement.
I would like to make, I really don't like the way, and I'll do a separate thing on this, but I'm going to put my foot down about the stalking that's popular, because I really fear that, like, that's been so normalized, and it really turns me off from stories. It really does. And like, I haven't even experienced like stalking, you know, knock on wood, hope that it stays that way, to the degree that some of the people that I know have. But I feel like because it's been normalized, like I am really uncomfortable with cyber stalking, and I have been that type of harassed by a few different people, and I really hate that it's made its way into fiction and like the mainstream meta. And I think a lot of that actually, which goes into another thing I was going to talk to you about, because you mentioned Wattpad, And I remember watching Teen Wolf and reading like fan fiction on fanfiction.net.
Oh, fanfiction.net.
And because I didn't know about Wattpad until people did the post-mortem on the After series. But something that sticks out to me and why I think like stalker stuff is kind of like a moment is because people also write fanfiction about real people, but it's celebrities, so they don't consider them to be real people. And I think that, and this is like we talk about like Reddit stories we think they're made up, and I consider them to be like thought experiments, and I enjoy doing the thought experiments sometimes. So I feel like that story we just read, if we were to scale that, because like that's a very personal thing where you see the person directly, and so then you're very like personally met with the consequences of your decision to like fuck with a real person, to take a real person and say, I'm going to write a story about you and romanticize your life and reposition you, like to an extent, like these people aren't seeing Louis Tomlinson or Harry Styles, and the fan fiction and frenzy that happened around Larry literally like drove a wedge in their friendship.
I have kind of a,
and so I just think that that's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely get that perspective. I could definitely see there being a link between the rise of cyberstalking and the rise of stalking in erotic stories. I have a bit of a different perspective. For me, I'm seeing, so first of all, I never want to like, I feel like we as individuals reserve the right to say, that's weird, but also we need to like protect the weird things, because like if we say like, oh, people shouldn't write stalker stories, like where does that begin? Like, it's one thing to say that it's like, I personally don't like that and I don't think it should exist, but it's another, but like we have to be careful with getting into like, because there's been such a rise in censorship of anything adult, anything erotic lately that
no, I'm not saying take it away, I'm saying like I don't like the trend 100%. I'm seeing.
So that's just one thing I just wanted to like make clear to our listeners. But my second point is that to me, the rise in stalker romances seems, in my opinion, I haven't done the research, but it seems to be coinciding with the rise of these TikTok videos that are primarily made by these upper middle class, straight, cisgender white women warning each other, here's how you avoid stalking, here's how you avoid dangerous predators in the parking lot at Target in the middle of the day. If you go to like, and it'll be like the silliest things where it's like, if you see some litter on the ground near your car, don't pick it up. That's how they get you. Or like, if you see someone go into a gas station, turn around and then go the other way, that's a signal to the other traffickers. And it's like these very random everyday things that they're turning into like a conspiracy that they, the most privileged of society, are somehow in danger. And that's not, and to be clear, that is not me like victim blaming or erasing the experiences of people who have had stalking, have had stalkers, have had harassers, have had any bad or awful experiences. Like, no one should be having that. And if you have had that experience, I'm sorry.
Right, but like realistically and statistically, the person to do that to is somebody that
and it's
know.
Also, and it's going to be someone from a much more marginalized community than the people making these TikToks are. So it's interesting to me that like the people who are who are fear-mongering about the danger of like traffickers, of being kidnapped, seem, in my opinion, to be the same demographic of people who are fetishizing it in these erotic stories.
Yeah, I do wonder if there's like a correlation between that of like, you know what? I feel like when I really think about it, I think it might be a continuation of the true crime obsession.
I definitely see that. Yeah.
And I think that there's a crowd of people who are fascinated with true crime because there's no such thing as like a perfect victim, and there's no perfect way to react in situations like that. But like, I remember hearing about some of these stories and thinking like, that's crazy. I didn't know someone I know would do something like X or could follow me through. And that's the thing, is if you watch some of these documentaries, sometimes you find out, I don't know, like your digital footprint isn't as clean as you think it is. And just like things like that, sometimes it's just like, damn, I can't believe this is out there. And I think that there's a crowd out there that's very fascinated by it. And it sort of touches a different part of them. And I, I guess I'll take back some of my judgment. I know I could be like a bit judgmental at times. Like I was very judgy about the stalker thing. But I can understand reading things that are kind of sickening and fascinating and it feeding a different part of you. And if you don't address it, it comes out like a different way. So I think that there might be a correlation because I think maybe these people who are in these privileged backgrounds who don't see that in their communities every day and they find out about it from like watching the news or watching a documentary, it stays an idea for them. And so fantasizing about it really isn't that big of a stretch because it's not in their community every day. It's abstract to them. It's not like material.
That's such a great point, though. Like, they take these experiences that are, like you said, not material to them and make it part of their, like, the only way they can experience it is through a fictional universe. Mm-hmm. I think we also, we have a tendency to...
It's like the white writer who put on blackface to get the black experience. Yeah. Sorry, I was just thinking about that. I just had to get that out there.
And then there's also been a few writers who have pretended to be a person, white writers.
We've talked about this. This is such a funny phenomenon to me.
It's happened so many times now. I'm like, there was this time and there was that time, and it's weird it keeps happening. But yeah, trying to wrap it all up. There's definitely an interesting tendency to kind of live out what we can. I mean, the escapism effect of fiction, and like I think we're definitely seeing that with a lot of Reddit stories now. Even with the real stories, people seem to take it and like live vicariously through someone else's life and be like, well, if I was here I would feel this, and this is how I want people to react, therefore you're the asshole because you wouldn't do what I imagined you would in my imagined daydream. And it's like, well, it's not about you, we're talking about somebody else.
Right. I've noticed there's like a lot of unaddressed hostility in some of these where people tend to jump, and it's the whole joke that if you post a relationship problem on Reddit, they're all going to tell you to break up. But I've noticed that a lot of people jump to really unrealistic scenarios of like declaring something publicly or picking a fight with someone publicly or getting information out publicly. And while, like, I understand that to some degree, I also feel like there's an element of it that gets kind of lost in, like there was it was a dispute between neighbors, and people were encouraging being petty, and I really disagree with that just because I think a lot of people are sometimes, like, they see something, they live through it, and they make a comment that's very short-sighted and addresses, like, this feeling that they have, this hostility towards this idea, but it's not in front of them and they don't have to deal with it every day. So for me, when I hear things like that, I'm like, well, you got to be careful. Like, one, if you're posting all this information on Facebook about your ex who cheated on you, and you want it to be public, people Google you, they see that shit. And, you might not care if that's part of your digital footprint. I come from a world where, like, I just don't know who's going to read that and how they might interpret it. Like, maybe I'm trying to get a job from someone who's a cheater and I don't even know it. Like, there's so many, like, you just don't know. I know that's funny as I'm creating a digital footprint currently of my thoughts. But it's like I noticed there's just a short-sightedness and an instant gratification that comes with some of that advice.
Instant gratification, I think, is the key word there, yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think we've covered a lot of good topics this week, and Yeah, do you have any final thoughts?
I had a very strong reaction to the stalker thing, and I would just like to
You're
apologize to
good.
anyone
No,
who took
I
that
think
personally, because I do just want to say, no, I do want to address something, because I have been like ruminating on it as over the past few minutes. I realized I completely understand the appeal of being like, oh my God, he's obsessed with me.
yeah.
Oh my God, he wants me so bad. Oh my God, he's at my house. He sent me flowers. He bought me clothes, and he knows exactly what size I am without me telling him.
Yeah. And I've noticed those stories also usually have BDSM scenes, so I think it's also like used as a way
Oh,
to get to like a way to like figure out how to have a BDSM scene that is like, how do I put this? Like there's the
I
BDSM real
see.
people have, where like you are negotiating and communicating boundaries and consent, and then there's the fantasy BDSM that is happening in erotic fiction, where we don't have that because that ruins the fantasy of whatever you're trying to like live out. So like if
Ah,
yeah, so this is just occurring to me now that like we might be using a lot, like you said, it definitely feels like it wraps into like the obsession with true crime, but also like you're aware of all of these awful things people could do, but also like you have this specific kink, this specific fetish, and you want to like figure out a way to live that out without doing it. And like the best way to like, yeah, it's,
yeah.
but yeah, whatever you're into, go out and read those erotic stories. You know, if it's
Yeah.
based on a friend's story, you know, that's not cool. Don't write stories based on your
No.
friends' lives.
Because what if they want to profit off
Yeah,
their own
don't.
life and you've now taken that
Yeah,
from them?
100%.
Or maybe in 2 years, when she divorces this man she's engaged to, who's like years older than her, she doesn't want the next husband to
Oh, that's true
know.
too.
Like, you don't know what could happen.
Or if they have kids, you know.
And that's why we just, or if, I mean, yeah, but also like having a life before children isn't that
Yeah. It's
crazy.
just like you don't want those kids to find it out from someone else.
That's true. So don't be a bitch to your
That is
friends,
the lesson of
guys.
this episode. So, thank you for joining us.
Be a good neighbor. Don't be a bitch to your friend.
Um, that is our moral of the story. So, thank you for joining us. I am Mo, this is Sarah, and we're signing off. Until next time.